NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
As an adult, don't we all miss spring break? Nothing like taking a week off from all your responsibilities. Well, here's the next best thing for adults, a spring break from house payments. SaveWithConrad.com can help you get rid of all your credit card debt, just like that. We're routinely helping our listeners save $5, $6, $7, even $800 a month. And you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this, but check this out, no house payments for 2 months. It's SaveWithConrad.com.
All right, here we are, Airheads. It's time once again for another rendition of Puttin on Airs back in the virtual Airstream studios. I'm Chi, and that's Corey. How you doing, Corey?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
I'm all right.
We had a large weekend. I wanted to say, first off, thanks to everyone who came out to the shows in Asheville and Knoxville this weekend. When I feel as empty as I do today on a Thursday, I know that it was a great weekend and we left it all on the field, and it was cool meeting everybody. We haven't really toured a lot together really since this show. And so it's cool being somewhere and having people come up to us and saying that they found out about us through Puttin on Airs. That's a new experience. It's usually, in our experience, it was like, oh yeah, people liked us and then they came to Puttin on Airs, but that's really cool. So we really appreciate y'all spreading the word.
Yeah, that does hit. That is nifty. You meet somebody, they say they're, an airhead or whatever, and then find out that was the first thing that they found from us. It's always fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
So this episode's going to be a little bit different for me. Listen, I've been telling y'all for weeks, and I'm not saying that I'll never revisit the Venn diagram. I'm sure I will as inspiration strikes, but I've been warning y'all for a long time. Like, I'm fixing to run out of this shit. And you may have noticed in recent weeks, I've been on and off with it. I've been venturing into other topics. Well, so this week it's a similar thing. I'm just going to talk about basically the craziest, I'm not going to say they're the craziest, but some of the craziest bosses or CEOs that I could find. No Venn diagram, no overlap. I just been watching Succession, and fantastic show. And it made me want to look up and also like Silicon Valley. I just watched The Social Network again, rewatched it. You've seen that movie, right? The Social Network?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure, dude. That was Sorkin, right?
Yeah, well, he wrote it. It was directed by David Fincher. Fincher, who also super hits.
A good combo.
An incredible combo. And, I rewatched it on a plane. And that movie is wild. I didn't intend to talk about that movie.
That's fine. Let's do it.
That is one of the reasons that I started looking into CEOs was because I watched that movie. It's all about Mark Zuckerberg and everything. That movie, and I remember thinking this when I first watched it, like, Aaron Sorkin and David Fincher, I guess both combined especially, are truly something else, because there's no reason that movie, being what it's about, should be so insanely compelling and
I agree,
enrapturing the whole time. Like, that movie sucks you in from the very first moment and just holds your attention, you're completely engaged the whole time. And it's a legal dispute between, rich,
a bunch of pieces of shit.
Yeah. Harvard types over a social media company. You know what I mean? It shouldn't, but it feels like a high stakes fucking thrill. I mean, the stakes were pretty high in terms of money, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. For people that we shouldn't care about.
Movie.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Like, when the movie first came out, when I just first saw there's a movie about the Facebook, legal drama, I didn't give a shit even a little bit. I didn't even read anything about it to try to go, well, maybe that. I was like, I don't care. Yeah, I understand why they're going to put it out. Facebook is a very popular topic, whatever. I'll be honest, finding out Jesse Eisenberg was in, I was like, okay, I'm a little more on board because he's a great actor, but at the same time, I don't think I care. And because I didn't know at first that it was written by Sorkin. And then when I found that out, I was like, well, okay, I sure do like quippy dialogue, so I could.
We should talk. Yeah, we should maybe talk about Aaron Sorkin on this show. I mean,
please.
I guess we can talk a little bit about him right now because he definitely seems to fit. Aaron Sorkin is like Like, I fucking love Aaron Sorkin.
Me
I'm
too.
a massive Aaron Sorkin fan, while also acknowledging that he's one of the most raven people on planet Earth, which we haven't talked about. We haven't really talked about ravenry on this
The
show,
etymology of
but
ravenry.
we talked about it tons on Well Read and stuff. It's a long-standing thing with us, but it basically just, I don't know, how would you describe someone who is raven or something? It's just super, it's very typical, right? Or
Yeah,
very,
I mean,
on the
I
nose, very on
I-
the nose for either the person or the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
think to me, it's just like, I mean, it obviously came from that.
That's
So right.
Raven.
And and I never watched that show, but I assumed that was like sort of a catchphrase for whenever Raven would do something, was doing something very Raven.
Yeah, right.
And so, yeah, we just started like, and by the way, if you're out there, I don't know what's going on with my camera. It's flickering, but I certainly can't fix it. So I apologize. But yeah, so we would like, just within the group, let's say, for instance, if I was to wake up to a string of text and say to the group, hey guys, I'm sorry I haven't responded. I got drunk last night and fell asleep eating a double cheeseburger. The response would be, my God, that's so Raven, because that is behavior typically ascribed to me. Yeah.
Right. Well, so in terms of Aaron Sorkin, it just means he's like an extremely pretentious, up his own butt, artiste ass motherfucker, basically.
Like the stereotype of it.
Yeah, right. Like, but again, he like, at the end of the day, I don't even care because he hits so hard for me, because he really is like that. It's weird to channel Kid Rock while discussing Aaron Sorkin, but in the words of Kid Rock, it ain't bragging, motherfucker, if you back it up, right?
Yep.
And so he's real good. But like, a lot of his stuff, like for example, The Newsroom, right?
Yeah.
Like that show got roasted by a lot of people, and it's still like it, because it was just people being like, okay, Sorkin is about to jump the shark with this one. Like, this is a bit too much, right? And I still really loved that show, while also thinking that all those people were, pretty right, or pretty well founded. He made that Netflix movie about the
trial of Chicago 6 or 8, 7.
Whatever city plus number. There's a ton of those.
That
right?
ending
and
scene, brother.
I know, that's what I was about to say. And that's a good movie. I enjoyed it. It's got a good cast, everything. But the last scene of that movie is
unbelievable.
The most, like, just again, the most Raven shit of all time. Like, for Aaron Sorkin.
I think a critique of Aaron Sorkin I would give is that he often writes the way he wants it to be instead of the way that it actually is.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And like a criticism that I've heard from people who don't, because I've been very vocal over the years about how I like Aaron Sorkin. We've actually lost a fan over it, because they got in my DMs and they were like, hey, just so you know, Aaron Sorkin is not a good writer at all. And I to which I said, hey, art's subjective, but like, he might not be your favorite, but to say he's not good is kind of stupid. And they were like, no, he's literally not even good, and I'll prove it to you. And they tried to send me a Zoom link so that they could get me on face-to-face and convince me that, and I said, hey, it's okay. It's just my opinion. I dig the guy's stuff, and you don't. That's no big problem. They're like, no, you're not hearing me out. I can explain to you how he's not even good. And I was like, yo, if I like everything he's ever done, you're not going to convince me that I was wrong in liking it, right? But go ahead. Well, I was going to say one criticism that I have heard from people that, even though I love Sorkin, I definitely agree with, is that, especially if you watch The West Wing, like every single character, if you know anything about Aaron Sorkin, is just him. Like all of them, every single one of them. The president is him. Fucking Rob Lowe was him. They all have. There's not really much. The only difference between some of these characters is one of them's older, one of them's younger, and one of them's a woman. But they fucking say the same thing.
Absolutely, they're all like verbal snipers who never miss. Never miss with a quip or a rejoinder or whatever. Like none of them have. None of them take showers later that day and think like, oh, fuck, I should have said that. Like they all say exactly what they should have said in every single moment. And it's like, and it's rapid fire, and they do it back and forth to each other. Nobody
Which
misses
is great.
a beat. There's no pause. There's no hesitation. That's what I was about to say. And it's like, So a lot of people are like, this is fucking ridiculous. Literally nobody talks like this. But I've always been, as far as that goes, I've always just been like, right, but it would hit if people did.
They did,
And this is a movie, so
yeah.
that hits for me. It's like people don't talk the way they talk in Quentin Tarantino movies either. You
Of
know
course
what I mean?
not.
Generally, but it hits.
It's entertaining.
So who cares? And that's how I've always felt about Aaron Sorkin's like style. And also like he broke onto the scene, as I understand it, with A Few Good Men, which was a play first and then turned into a movie. And that might be a top 5 movie all time for me. That's one of my absolute favorite movies. I'm a huge Rob Reiner fan because of that movie and Stand
One
By
of the
Me
most
combined.
underrated directors of all time,
right?
if
Because
we can say
his versatility is insane,
and
like,
all of them are fucking legendary. Like, dude, when
Right.
Harry Met Sally, Spinal Tap, and A Few Good Men, 3
Stand By
complete,
Me too. Stand By Me is also completely different, right?
different movies, and they're all like the guy only does the thing. What was that one dude who like he only acted in 5 things, but every single one of them was nominated for
I
an
may have
Academy
his name
Award?
wrong, but I think it's John Cazale.
Okay. He's one of them types.
He was in The Godfather, The Deer Hunter, Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon, and maybe one. And I might have some of those wrong too. Maybe it's Godfather, Godfather 2, and then the 3 other things. That's the only things he ever did. But will you tell, if you can remember it, and if you can't, I'll tell the version of it that I remember, the way I remember it, that Aaron Sorkin story that you shared with me about him writing a particular scene involving an opposing viewpoint or whatever. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I remember what you're talking about, but there's a lot of water under the bridge since then, or like a lot of time has passed, and my retention is bad, but it was the one that I learned when I took, and I'm sorry how this is going to sound, when I took Aaron Sorkin's master class.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, go ahead and tell it.
The way I remember it was, and I don't remember what movie or project it was in or whatever. It might have been The Newsroom or something with some politics in it, which is a whole lot of his shit. So
most of it,
that doesn't narrow it down. So, but you said that he said that he had to write this character giving a this like screed representing a viewpoint that he himself vehemently disagreed with, right?
Yeah, I remember.
And the way he put it was something like, I never could understand how a human being could possibly hold that opinion on that subject until I wrote it.
And by the way,
then it clicked.
By the way, in what he's saying, as raven as it is, there is something profound to it sincerely. There is something profound to it sincerely. And now I'm about to be Aaron Sorkinish, but one time, right after we'd first gone on tour, I had to, a fan of ours who also happened to teach at one of our local high schools wanted me to come speak to his class. I just said yes without asking any questions whatsoever. Well, I get there, and I'm like, I figured I'm going to speak about comedy or whatever. And I've got it in my mind. I'm like, just do the opposite of Jim Carrey in the Harvard speech. You know what I mean? To tell these kids that they need to have a backup plan, all this shit.
Yeah.
And I get there, and 5 minutes before the class, he goes, all right, well, it's an hour and a half. So whatever you want to do. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, you're going to do the class today. And I was like, whoa, oh, okay. What's the class? He's like, well, we do, it's like we do, social, current issue. Part of it is current issues and part of it is blah, blah, blah. And I was like, so I had like 2 seconds to figure out what we were going to do. So I decided, I was like, all right, we're going to do a debate. I'm going to talk to everybody and we're going to do a debate and we're going to have teams. And I'm just going to have this be debate class because then they'll do most everything. And so I had the kids, high school kids, get up and debate each other. But I told them, whatever, I said, you have to take the opposite stance of what you believe. You know what I mean? I was like, take the opposite stance of what you believe, because I'm just trying to be creative. And like, it was very fucking interesting watching someone who didn't believe a thing make all the points. And like, their realization of like, oh wow, I could see that. Like, now that I'm arguing it, from my point of view. However, Aaron Sorkin basically being like, I can unlock the secrets to communication, through my fucking writing is
by writing. Yeah.
But I do get what he's saying, but goddamn, dude, it's so Raven.
But when you told me, he said, I never understood anyone could have that opinion on that subject until I wrote it. I was like, you know what? I actually feel exactly that same way about carrot cake, because I was never, and it's honestly not even a joke. It's true. It's like, I was never a big carrot cake fan, but like the family wanted a carrot cake and I'd be baking and stuff. So I made a carrot cake. And after I made a carrot cake, I was like, the carrot cake is fire.
Yeah.
I love this shit.
No, I
So
feel
it
you on
took
that.
me,
I did. He had a lot of good things in there, though. I mean, obviously, his masterclass was mainly him crawling up his own butt. But I mean, you get what you sign up for. But like the one thing I took away from it that like really, really helped me was he was talking about. He's like, if you're a writer and you feel you don't write enough, he's like, you're probably okay, because he goes, writing to me is his 10% writing and 90% thinking about the shit that you're going to write about.
of course.
You know. And I was like, okay. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, that makes me feel better. And then he was just talking about like when he's stuck, he would just go take a shower. And of course, he used the example of like, because that's what Einstein did, you know. So naturally, I do that, and it does work. But yeah, if you want to see a man who thinks very highly of himself, but as you said, Trey, can back it up, I suggest you take Aaron Sorkin's masterclass.
I know that a lot of the critiques of him also, you can find all these YouTube videos and stuff that point out how often he has reused the same tropes and jokes and basically lines. He'll barely alter a line and use it again, but it's like, I tell you what, like, I've made at this point hundreds of YouTube videos, right? And I try to write jokes for all of them. And at first I was like, I would think of something, I'd be like, it's kind of similar to that joke I made about that other thing in that other video. But like politics in this country is like a cycle and all this shit.
Of course.
The same subjects keep coming up. And at a certain point, I just stopped giving a shit about that. And I'll recycle material all the time because, you know, you got to feed the beast or whatever. So he's just
I do the same thing,
grander scale than me. So
the other day the other day I was getting ready to write something for my Substack over at parttimefunnyman.com, and I got 2 paragraphs in, and then it clicked with me, and I went back to my archives and realized I had written basically word for word the exact same thing in October. You know what I mean? Like, you just forget all that shit. But yeah, dude, if you're and like, you know, Sorkin's pretty prolific. I mean, he's writing shit all the time. Like, the human brain only possesses so many, I won't say jokes, but so many joke mechanisms. And when you use the same joke mechanisms, it can make a joke that is technically different from this joke sound exactly the same because you got there using the same paddle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I wanted to show you, there was one other thing I wanted to show you, and then I guess I'll start talking about some crazy bosses and shit. Let me see if I can pull this up. Oh, yeah.
We're so good at the computers.
Do you see that?
Not yet. Not yet.
Really?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do now. The girl from a very poor family has been picked as a luxury brands model, as they liked her
attitude and smile. So this is a feel-good post, right? I don't know what this is, probably in India or Pakistan, somewhere like that. I hope that's not racist.
You said probably.
Yeah, right.
Probably is.
And then we don't even need the audio. I'm trying to get copyright flagged or nothing.
Yeah, right.
But it's just this very pretty young girl walking down the streets, and it reportedly she's from like a peasant family, and she goes to this high-end luxury brands store. And in the store they've used her as like the model for a lot of their items or lines of items. There she is pitching some makeup and stuff. So it's like a luxury makeup brand for young girls. And they picked this girl off the streets from abject poverty to be the spokesperson. And it ends with a little inspirational quote, "Make your dreams matter," right? Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah,
that whole thing is sweet, right?
Yeah.
Buddy, you talk about Raven. The comments of that post, which I believe to be true, are so insanely Raven of both the internet and also capitalism.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because immediately, you watch that, you almost start to tear up or whatever. You're like, oh, that's so sweet. There's some good in the world. You go to the comments, and all of the top comments are outlining, like, just so you guys know, they paid this girl a pittance and now have and now have the right to use her image in perpetuity forever, and she gets peanuts for it, and she's still going to die in poverty, and she got fucked over, and she doesn't have the money for lawyers and all this stuff, and it's just the internet
To be fair, that's where my head went to, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Right. Well, apparently it is, but it's like so. And it's fine. I'm not laughing at her situation.
No,
Again,
me
it's
either.
just the
The
ravenry
ravenry.
of the fucking like nothing ever hits. Like when it comes to any kind of capitalist anything like that ever comes up, it's some bullshit behind the curtain. But also the internet just rushes to ruin everything. In this case, like appropriately so.
Sure.
But also like the internet, there'll be. You cannot enjoy a gif of a fat fuck cat being fat and goofy because everybody on the internet would be like, I hope that's animal abuse. That cat definitely has, cat fibromyalgia or whatever. Is certainly, and as you can tell by looking at, you see the way it moves its tail, it's super depressed and it has diabetes and it's going to die. And, it's always some shit like that.
We don't live in a time where people allow two things to be true anymore. I've found like two things can be true. That cat is being abused, but it looks really, really funny sitting there with a piece of cheese on its head. You know what I mean? Like that's just true. Like I thought a lot of the subreddits.
Do you think having a pet that gets big and fat, like, do you qualify that as animal abuse?
It depends on how fat. It really does depend on how fat. Because, like, not all dogs will do this, but most dogs will, quote unquote, founder themselves. If you keep giving them food, they will keep eating it. And I saw a dog one time at Target, and it was like, it was the biggest, Trey, it was a weenie dog. It was a fucking weenie dog. Yeah. And it weighed at least 125 pounds. I'm not kidding.
It's a big weenie dog.
His and this woman had him up in a cart, and we were just like, oh, buddy. And she immediately, because here's the thing. If someone has adopted or rescued a dog, you don't have to ask them. They'll fucking tell you. And she immediately, as soon as we looked over at it, she launched into this whole thing of how, his former owner made him be this way, and then they died, and now I've got him on a diet trying to get him back to normal or whatever. But like, so this dog couldn't even walk because if you put him on the ground, his belly was longer than his arms. Like he would just, so like, yeah, I do think that is when you get into that range. But if you just got kind of a chunky dog, no, they're hitting, they love it.
But what do you think about the motivation behind it? Because, like, let me use this as an analogy, right? Pretty much every Meemaw on planet Earth, right?
Yeah.
It's a known thing. You go over to a Meemaw's house, and this goes from Italian Nanas to fucking Russian Bubbas to, Southern Meemaws.
I don't know about the Chinese Meemaws, though.
No, they call you fat, I reckon.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, you go over to Meemaw's house, she's going to be shoving food in your face the whole time. You're going to dry up and blow away. You know, fucking, you need to eat something. You got to eat something. Here, eat this, And it's a stereotype, and it's like a loving stereotype. Like nobody hates on Meemaw for doing it. It's like, that's just what Meemaw does, and everybody knows it. But like, that includes the Meemaws of big fat fuck diabetic motherfuckers who don't need to be eating shit. You know what I mean? But Meemaw going Meemaw. Like, so what if you just got like a Meemaw ass pet owner who's like, oh, my baby loves his sausages, and she just then like, she's just like, but he likes it. And
he likes it,
but he's dying.
Right. It's
no,
like
he's fine. Hell, he'll be fine. It feels pretty fucking different to me,
dude.
Like locking a pit bull in a cage behind a junkyard until it rots away or whatever.
It is. I think that there is such a thing as it's different. I do think there's such a thing as like unconscious abuse. You know what I mean? And like, it's where like you are technically hurting this thing, but in your brain you're not because you're being loving. Dude. Okay. So like, I think that doing that to your kid is way different than beating your kid. Like there's scales, but two things can be true. Like if you've got a kid, once your kid gets in his teens or whatever, he can make his own, he knows, hey, I should run or I should, but if you got a fucking 200-pound 5-year-old,
I brought up Meemaws for a reason. Like I'm saying Meemaws do that and people don't get on them. I think a parent if you're a parent and you got a big fat fuck kid, it is your fault. I know I have kids and I worry about
it's your
them being
fault.
fat and I watch what I feed them and all this shit. But I also was a fat kid. I've struggled with my weight my whole life. A lot of times you see fat fuck kids, they got fat fuck parents. And so it's like,
You'll have that.
you'll have that. I'm not
Yeah,
saying that makes
it's
it
up to
okay,
us
but
as
it's like
parents.
they're not doing it. They're not applying it to themselves. Of course, they're not going to apply
Right.
it to their kid or whatever. I think it's their fault, but I don't think that it's the same as like abuse. You know?
No,
what I mean?
of
Like
course
people that-
not. Of course
Right.
not. Like I would, dude, if I don't know what the situation would be, but if someone was like, yeah, your kid's going to be way overfed or we're going to fucking punch him in the mouth every time he's happy, I'd be like, all right, let the fat fuck eat, but like, I think there's just like, okay, it'd be the same thing as like, verbal abuse versus physical abuse. Like one is definitely, you'd rather have that. Like I think most women would rather be screamed at. Goddamn. But
And
it doesn't
broomsticked,
then
right.
but it
Yeah.
doesn't make that thing right. You know what I mean? Like it's
Of
like kind
course.
of in that whataboutism range, but like it does, like, as parents, it's our job to teach our kids that, hey, whatever works at Mama's house don't work in the real life, but enjoy it while you're over there. Because, dude, my fucking mama, and I know yours is the same, she was the queen of this shit. When I was at my fattest, which is 50 pounds heavier than I am right now, and right now I'm not doing good, like I would go over to my granny's and I would be so depressed about my weight and I'd be trying to do good and she'd constantly be just trying to shove stuff in me, and I'd be like, Granny, I'm a fucking cow, and she'd be like, you ain't, you're a growing boy. I'm 27. I was a growing boy at 27.
Of course.
And we've talked about this before, certainly not on this podcast, and maybe the mammals of dogs feel this way too, but like to her, because Granny did it to her fucking dog, like all her
That's what I'm
dogs,
saying.
all
Saying.
of them almost died.
I feel like a lot of fat fuck dog or pets.
It's
I feel like
mammals.
there's mammals there.
Yes, and are they trying to do something bad? No, they're loving you to death. It's like it's like fucking Chris Farley squeezing that roll in Tommy Boy. But like she, in her mind though, because things are so much different now. She was born in 1920, which means she lived through the Depression. And back then, societally, and this is actually a decent topic for this show, I don't know that we've ever covered, but back then, societally, being fat and pale meant that you were wealthy, whereas nowadays being skinny and tan often means that you're wealthy. You know what I mean? So she looked at my fat ass and was like, women are going to love you. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there with my receding hairline just going, no, they're not. And I have so much proof.
Yeah. Didn't you, Brink, talking about fat fuck dogs and stuff reminded me, and just fat fucks in general. You had like some whale stuff or something?
Yes. So I don't know if you've heard, but like there's been a significant increase since 2020 of orcas.
Yeah, the whales are fighting back. Right?
They're fighting boats and stuff like that, right? And I thought this happened. I
think they finally saw Blackfish somehow. I don't know how. Did you ever see that documentary, Blackfish?
No,
they got it on Orca Netflix recently.
Wetflix.
And they were like, Wetflix. And they were like, this will not stand.
I
don't know. They can like communicate and shit, right? Maybe they found out what's been going down and they're like, fuck these motherfuckers. Well, I don't know.
Let me set it up and then I will pose you the theory from biologist Alfredo Lopez Fernandez, which is a fucking wonderful name. Alfredo Lopez Fernandez. If that motherfucker's mama can't cook, then there's nothing right with this world. So since 2020, there's been like a huge spike in it. And so I heard about this like a week ago, right? And then 2 days ago, I saw it again. I was like, oh yeah, I've already read this article, but turns out it was a completely different article because it happened again, right? And I was like, I got to talk about this on the show. So today I fucking type it in again, and there was an article from 1 day ago, and I was like, okay, and it was a different one. And then as I go back to the Google search, there's one from 8 minutes ago, and I was like, are they just repeating this shit? No, completely separate one that happened in Spain, right? So orcas are just ramming ships. They're just like you said, they're clearly communicating with each other and doing it. And Mr. Alfredo, man, his theory, and he suggests that this all stems from, there was in like 2019 or something, there was this boat that drilled this orca whale, and the whale didn't die, but it was very badly injured. And so this orca apparently regains its strength and then is like, all right, it's time. Like John Wick shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
So this orca starts attacking these fucking boats every time they see it. And this orca has babies, and they see this behavior, much like the monkeys in the experiment who were beating the shit out of all the monkeys that were climbing the ladder to get to the banana. You remember that thing?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, cool. I'm glad. So they did this experiment with monkeys, ultimately to prove that so many things that we do in society are just because that's the way it's done, and we have no idea fucking why we do it. So they had all these monkeys in this cage, right? And then they put a ladder up to the top, and on the top they had a banana. So naturally, a monkey would try to climb that, and every time they would climb to the top of it, they would spray this monkey with a fucking fire hose and start spraying all the other fucking monkeys with it, right? Well, they slowly start replacing monkeys.
Science is wild.
It is. They slowly start replacing monkeys one at a time, so that one of the monkeys never saw any of this happening, right? Well, eventually they stopped spraying the monkeys, but anytime any of the monkeys would get next to the ladder, all of the monkeys would beat the fuck out of this monkey. Right?
Yeah, right.
Because some of them
remember,
they know what's going to happen.
No, don't do that.
By the end of this trial, they had 50 monkeys in there, and they were all still doing it, but not one of those monkeys had ever been in there when the water was actually sprayed. All they knew was, if you get next to that ladder, we beat the fuck out of you. So it's signaling to them that's like, there's things that we do that if we would just stop for a second and go, wait, why? We would realize there's no explanation and it's stupid. At one point, maybe it did, but now it's not. So point is, all these baby orcas have grown up seeing their mom and all these people fucking ram ships. Now, at a certain point, they're not going to know that the reason we do this is because mommy was attacked, because like, it's just like all this it's just their behavior changing, because they're seeing now, hey, you see a ship, you fuck it up, and over a couple of years and more breeding, it's now like this entire group of orcas, and then any orca baby that swims up and sees them knows, see ship, fuck it up. So that ship may have created an irreversible evolutionary change in whales that now we're about to get our comeuppance for, as you said, blackfish.
Well, I mean, they ain't never called them friendly whales.
No,
but they've all, the thing that, like, I wanted to make that joke, and they are like fucking ruthless hunters and killers, and they do coordinate to. I've seen some wild videos about how they'll like a seal will think it's escaped an orca because it gets on an ice floe or something. Yeah. And the orca will go get like 3 of its boys, and they'll make like a fucking wave pool that like tilts the ice floe over and then eat the fuck out of that seal or whatever. They're obviously real smart.
I was about to say, because that goes
they
against
used to always be like, they was homies with humans for a long time.
Right.
Humans betrayed that trust.
Yes.
So now this seems evolutionarily appropriate.
Yeah, and that like goes against all our talk, because this isn't the first behavior of it wasn't instinctual. It was never the instinct of a whale to see a boat and smash it, right? But now it is slowly becoming the instinct of a whale to do that, because they've seen it done so many times.
I hate to say this, but like, I think I'm all for that.
Oh, I'm for it.
Except knowing us and how we be, it may result in them fucking around and finding out. Like, I'm not sure that they won't. I'm not sure that orcas want that smoke at the end of the day. Like, no. I love them ramming boats, but you ram too many boats, and before long, the hooks are going to come out or whatever.
No, I agree with you.
The hippies will try to stop it, but like, big boat will probably take care of it, I assume.
Yeah, I would say that, like, without question, if we as humans decided, hey, let's put an end to this, we would just start putting missiles on cruise liners and just start taking out orcas left and right. So, yeah,
Yeah, they'd
I'm
be
with
letting
you.
people from Ohio do it. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? You're
yeah,
like,
and it would hit.
You want to run the fucking whale missile today?
Yeah,
$500. You can explode that whale.
Dude, just like those feral hogs in Texas where you hang out of the helicopter or whatever.
Exactly.
Dude,
They'll
that would
treat
be
them like that. They're like, look, we gotta shoot them with rockets. They're a fucking nuisance. You guys heard what these things are doing?
man. I hadn't even
Because
considered
pigs are
all
smart
that.
too.
Yeah, you're
Sorry, I got
so.
something in my throat.
That's okay, buddy. My voice is completely gone from this weekend. I didn't realize how much screaming was in my new act, and I've just been kind of all day. But yeah, no, I'm you know, look, most big boats, I would say that I side with the whale in doing that. But yeah, you're right. I didn't even consider that like this will be a very, very small, short-lived victory for them.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah.
But go whale. You teed this up before we started by saying like you wanted to talk about this because of how we're always talking about what animals and how they can love or not and stuff.
Yeah, well,
You didn't really get into all that.
No, I didn't. But I only said
because
that.
I when you said that, I was like, well, he don't think like because I always made some exceptions, and I'm pretty sure whales were in the category of exceptions. Like I know that some animals have like higher order abilities. I was like primates. I think I said whales.
But do you think
dolphins.
whales? Do you think? Okay, you said whales could love.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Well,
they can like talk. They sing love songs to each other.
Well, then never mind. Because the argument that I was going to make, had you not, would be like, look, clearly this is not instinctual. This is learned behavior, and this is they can. No, clearly,
they're legit.
Okay. Yeah, I agree that they're legit. and you know, to be fair, we haven't seen squirrels form a mutiny against car tires. You know, so
right.
So yeah, I guess I'm back. You're right again.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody. I don't know what happened. It happened to me while me and Mark were doing a bonus episode of Weekly Skews too. I just I don't know, got something in my throat.
I think Mercury
is that when they call getting a frog in your throat, or is that a different thing? What's
think
a frog in your throat?
Well, I've heard it said. I've heard it said in several different iterations. Like I've also heard it like when someone they're going to, like, let's say someone scares them, like they're about to talk and then they get scared. They're like, oh, you got a frog in your throat. So I was like, that lump, you know, like that, you know, the lump, like when you're nervous to say something, there's a lump, but then there's also like, I have like fucking phlegm in my throat. That might be a frog, you know.
Well, see that's what I have. I have sinus problems. I have drainage and stuff. And every now and then I'll get like, it's like the drainage just like hits my throat all wrong or something.
I think anytime your throat is wronged, it's a frog.
Right. It's like a tickling sensation in my throat that just makes me want to like, you know, cough or clear it or whatever. And I can't talk through it, or that makes it worse. But I think I've got it.
Oh, I had something I wanted to ask you up top and I didn't.
Okay.
So, you know, people that know me know I'm pretty open. I'm like, you know, kind of low key depressed right now. We're making it through, but I'm sort of rekindling a little depressed right now. So naturally, the thought occurs to me now, as it usually does when I'm depressed, but I never jump into it, but I'm like, I need to start baking bread. Right. You know, I think that's a pretty normal, I don't feel well, maybe this will help me. And
it absolutely is. I remember I told you, I didn't know that, but I told I told you this on the Well Read podcast when it happened, but like when COVID started during the pandemic, that was when I found the Great British Baking Show, right? Which has become a seminal part of my life in the intervening years. But I found it at the beginning of COVID during lockdown and became obsessed. And in my mind, just from watching that show, and it's funny because it turned out like I also didn't realize that people across the world were doing the same thing, i.e., getting into baking specifically during the lockdown. I didn't realize that. In my mind, it's just I found this show. It made me want to bake. So I started baking, and I started like with bread, right? Made like a simple loaf, and it hit for me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get into baking bread. So I started looking up like things about baking bread online and reading into it and shit. And in doing so, I, of course, because I fucks with Reddit, I was like, is there a subreddit for baking bread? Of course there is. It's called Breadit, right?
Oh,
So
nice.
I found Breadit, right? And in finding Breadit, then I soon found out that in that amongst that culture of people, it is a known fact or generally accepted as such that getting into baking bread is a cry for help and generally means you are not doing well, because Breadit is a baking bread subreddit that also doubles as a like suicide hotline and depression treatment fucking subreddit. And I just thought that it was really funny to me when I realized that, because I had no idea. But it was like, you know, COVID lockdown. I mean, you know, I wasn't doing great, but I in no way did I put those two together until I started looking into it more. But yeah, apparently they go hand in hand. Being depressed and baking bread is just like this, apparently.
Well, I only put it, I remember you talking about that now, but I only put it together myself because like baking bread and stuff has been something since we started this show that I was like, hey, you need to get into this, because Trey's already into it. And like bake it, like especially French baking and stuff like that. I was like, that really goes with this show. You know,
I wouldn't say, I just want to make it clear. I would not say that I'm into French, like patisserie and shit like that. Like,
no, but you know, like, you do. You've sent me shit. You fucking made the macarons.
Yeah, not the greatest. I've made a bunch
that doesn't
of
matter.
macarons.
Dude, there's plenty of French people that don't hit at it either. You know what I mean? Like, you only see...
I'm just not good at making stuff pretty, basically. I can't make things like look good. And also like baking breads. I pretty immediately shifted from bread into like pastries and sweets and desserts and stuff like that. I haven't made any kind of loaf of bread in a long fucking time. I've actually been meaning to, because it's been a while. I've been wanting to make like a focaccia or something like that.
Yes. Well, and that's what I wanted.
I made a fire ass focaccia one time, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's part of what I wanted to ask you about is like are there like, okay, if I'm going to start baking bread, what's my starter? You know, not like, no pun intended. I don't literally mean like a sourdough starter, but like, what's something? Yeah, I don't. Yeah, right. No, I mean like intro to bread, right? Because like I said, I've always wanted to do it because of this show. And then this week I was like, maybe I should start doing that. And then I go, oh wait, I'm really depressed. Oh fuck, this makes sense. You know what I mean? But like, so the thing that's always like, I think, and you can speak to this probably, the thing that's always sort of made me not get into it is because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, please do. And I think this is why you are into it and good at it. It's very mechanical, correct? Like it's right.
Very much
so we're both big fans of cooking, but I think the reason that I tend to cook way more than I would ever try to bake is because I have fucking ADD. And so I might make a mistake. But in cooking, I mean, there's some things obviously you can't salvage. That rarely ever happens to me. But like in cooking, if I fuck up a little bit, I'm like, okay, well just, you know, it's too salty. Dilute it with this, whatever. Oh, it needs more salt. Do that. I can fix it. But with baking, I feel like I would get really, really frustrated. So did you come out? Okay, good. That's what I want to know. Did you come out the gate like, oh shit, I did this and it hit? Or was there like a huge trial and error period?
Oh, it's both, and it continues. I mean, yeah, they say, you know, the phrase is cooking is an art, baking's a science, or whatever, because because like the measurements are so important and everything, and it's like you get one thing. That's what I say about macarons, dude. I don't even know. I've made so many batches of macarons, and it's like I don't even know what. I got an oven thermometer because I was like, my oven must be too hot, but based on the thermometer, it's not. I didn't let them rest long enough. I didn't age the egg whites long enough. I didn't beat the egg
my
whites.
God.
I didn't beat the egg whites to the right consistency. I didn't sift the almond flour properly or whatever. Like, there's just a million different things that you can fuck up, and if you fuck up any of them, it ain't
It's
gonna
over.
be right. And
It's
like,
over.
and some people, macarons though, I feel like are like, having baked a fair number of things. It's not like everything is like that. Macarons are like the bane of my existence, baking wise. Like they're on another level. But there's people out there that just don't ever fuck those things up. They're just like good at it. They just like got it. But I fuck things up all the time. My biggest early lesson that I learned, and you may already know this, like it might be common knowledge, but it wasn't to me when I started. Like, the way you like measure your flour is obviously super important. And like, if it said 2 cups of flour, I'd take my 1 cup measuring cup and like scoop out a cup of flour, right?
Of course.
And I'd level off the top, put it in there.
Yeah.
That's 1 cup. Then I'd do that again. You can't do it like that.
How? Why?
Because if you take the measuring cup and put it in the bag or your flour, wherever you keep your flour in, you put the measuring cup in there and like scoop it out, it's compacted, right? And so you're actually getting way, way more than you mean to when you do that. So what you have to do is you have to hold the measuring cup, take a spoon.
Oh my God.
And scoop it out of the bag into the measuring cup, right? And then, but also what you really need to do, which I do. Now, yeah, I mean, that depends. Like with certain things, yes, but like not always. That I feel like that's kind of a remnant of when it used to be more necessary than it is now for a lot of things, but not always. But anyway, what you really need to do, which I will do sometimes if I'm making something like macarons, right, is you need to measure that shit. Like I have a kitchen scale, weigh it.
Right.
Like, because then you can't get it wrong. Right. And so because
you go in there and you weigh your scoop and then subtract that, right?
Well, if you're gonna weigh it, I would use like a bowl or something. So you put the way those kitchen scales work, you put a bowl on it and then turn it on, and it don't weigh the bowl. It just weighs what you put in the bowl.
Right.
And that way you can. America is the only country that uses like the cups and all that shit. All the rest of the countries, when they bake, they weigh it. It's like 500 grams or whatever, and they weigh it all out because it does have to be precise. But it's like,
well, no wonder they got the show and we didn't.
Right, but in macarons, as an example, like an American recipe might say like 4 egg whites, right? But fucking eggs are different sizes, and the whites are different sizes, so you don't really know how much egg whites that is. Versus like 300 grams of egg whites, or I'm grams dumb, right?
No,
like
me too.
So I don't even know how many maybe I just said an insane amount of egg whites. I don't know because I don't fuck with grams because I'm American. But I'm saying if a recipe says that and you weigh it out, it's gonna be right. Whereas if the recipe says 4 egg whites and you got 4 extra large eggs and they use 4 medium eggs or whatever, like that can fuck you up. Yeah, that shit.
Well, dude, you've already changed the game for me. Like I just have to get a scale.
You got to be precise. Yes,
right.
Kitchen scale, and yeah, make sure you're not. Whereas like with sugar, though, oftentimes the recipe it should be compacted. Like
right,
so you do scoop that out like straight into the scoop. I mean, so it's just I don't know.
Well,
it's very precise and methodical for sure, which I do like.
Cookies though seem to be different, and I say that because cookies, right. Because
ass cookies, boy.
I know, and you've texted them to me, and I really want to get into it because I've noticed like there's like this scale they use where it's like if you want your cookies, if you like this type of cookie, you use more flour, less egg. If you like this type of cookie, you use more egg. So I feel like cookies are like maybe the link between baking and cooking, where I'm like I could be kind of an artist in this
because you can kind of fuck a cookie up a little bit and it
still hit.
Yeah,
it's like this one's just crunchy.
Exactly. Or this one's crunchy, or this one's flatter or chewier or fatter or whatever. Like it may not have been what you were like looking for exactly, but it'll will still hit.
So whatever. Like you're talking about focaccia, is that something I should start with or is that a really difficult bread? Because it looks hard.
It's not a really difficult bread. I would say that like a brioche shit like that is more difficult. To focaccia's not so bad. It's also fun because it's got a shitload of oil in it, and you like poke it in there with your fingers and dig around and stuff.
And brioche is basically cake, right?
I mean, yeah, sort of. It's a heavily enriched French bread, so it's got a lot of fat and things that hit in it. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad I brought it up because now I know, like, if I'm ever going to start this endeavor, at least save myself a couple headaches and get a fucking scale, because that would have infuriated me. Like, I would have just been wrong the whole time, because I would have assumed, like, yeah, you get the cup and you fucking, like, just do that. But dude, thank you for that.
I remember the first few things about like bagels in particular, because I've got a KitchenAid and everything, and I'd be trying to knead them, and it would not come together. It was like way too tough and everything. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Because I'd watch the videos and recipes and stuff, and I was like, it ain't supposed to be like that. And it was because I was unknowingly putting way too much flour, or I'd say way too much, but like more than I meant to, which made a huge difference.
Which is all that matters.
I actually err on the side of lighter with flour now for that reason. But
did you boil the bagels?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay,
bagels otherwise.
Okay, I didn't know that. But see, I saw someone making it the other day, but I had my sound turned off, and I didn't know if like that was some sort of new hack or like. So that's the Polish way to do it: is you take them, you knot them, and then you boil them, and then you bake them.
Also, this is a personal preference thing, but like when it comes to yeast, there's two different kinds: active and instant, I think. And one of them, and I can't remember which is which. I think the instant, you can just like mix it straight into the recipe. You don't have to proof it, but I don't like fucking with that kind because like if the OG kind is the active yeast where it's like you proof it first, which is like you put in a little cup of water or milk or something with a bit of sugar and then it blooms. Right. That's how you know that it's going to work. Right. I like to know that it's going to work because I've had yeasted recipes where I use instant yeast and stuff because yeast can be dead. Yeast is a living thing. If the yeast ain't going to work, the whole thing is fucked. Right. And so without that first step that shows you for sure my yeast is hitting, it's a crapshoot for no reason, in my opinion. So I would use the active kind and always make sure that it's working first.
So yeast is like bacteria, like it's dude, it's so fucking crazy how different bacteria be sometimes. You know what I mean? Because
bacteria be like that.
When I was a kid, if you'd have said to me, does bacteria ever hit? I would go, no, bacteria never hits. Bacteria is what makes me sick. But like the older I get and the more I'm trying to be into my gut health, it's like you need bacteria. And then like yeast is a bacteria. And like certain mushrooms is like, this is a bacteria. And like, who the fuck were these people who were just like, let's take this goddamn bacteria and put it in this shit and that'll be awesome.
I think most of that stuff is all like mostly happened by accident. A lot of the because dude, bread is fucking ancient, dude.
Yeah, and it's like bread and beer are like the first two things that they ever did, right? And it was like
with beer with alcohol, I figure like some fruit was left to go bad and fermented or whatever, and people were like, "Oh, this is wild, but it hits though," and then they went from there.
But dude, the first person. Like you read the ingredients to make bread and you're like, if I follow this shit, it'll work. If I don't follow this shit, it won't work. Somebody had to be the first motherfucker to get, this is it. You know what I mean? This is the way. And I just, that fucking blows my mind, but thank you for the tips.
Absolutely. So I've decided I know I said I was going to talk about some crazy bosses, but I think I'm going to wait because I know we got some air mails and stuff. And I don't want to get into talking about these guys and
go off the rails.
Yeah, I'll just wait till next week to talk about them, give people something to look forward to. But I have a couple of other tiny things. Found some more like rich people's stories that I found and on Reddit, of course, and wanted to run a couple of them by you. Like this.
Where do you find these on Reddit? Because I'm always looking at Reddit for stuff for this show, and I don't know the ones to follow.
I actually most of the ones I brought up have been just ask Reddit threads that happen to do with rich people shit. You know what I mean? So it's just like kind of random, basically. But if I see anything like that, obviously I make a note of it. But this guy said he knew a dude an acquaintance who had a private jet and said and I might have the numbers wrong, but that he traded in his 747 for a 737 because, quote, he didn't like the way the chandeliers shook on takeoff. Which I could say how that's annoying.
I mean, that would be
know?
annoying, you know.
Yeah, right.
But one of
Okay.
those annoyances that I would never think there was a solution to.
Right, yeah.
If I would just be like, yeah, we're taking off in a plane. The
That has
chandeliers are probably,
chandeliers.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're
right.
probably going to shake. What the fuck is the difference? Like 747, obviously bigger than a 737, correct?
Right. So maybe it's just a little less, little smoother or something. Maybe,
yeah, I
maybe the
guess.
730s. Maybe it wasn't about the different plane models. It was just the second one didn't have chandeliers on it or something. I don't know. I just know that that's like what the guy said,
That's
which
a
I
rough
thought
problem
was
to
funny.
have, man.
Speaking of Mark Zuckerberg earlier, he once, this was like a story at the time when it happened. You probably remember it. He like bought up his whole neighborhood of mansions.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So obviously he lived in a real wealthy neighborhood. He's in a massive mansion. The only other houses around, even remotely close, are also huge mansions. And he bought all of them so he wouldn't have any neighbors. Like he bought all of them and just left those empty. I don't know. He might have partied in them or whatever. Fucking put some coders in one or some shit. Who knows what?
Well, yeah, I was about to say, like, that
Human
would be cool.
clones in the basement of one of them. Who the fuck knows with that guy? But like,
You definitely have one that's the party house. So it's like if we're having a get together, we go to the party house and then we fuck that up, and then tomorrow the cleaners can clean that up while I'm in my non-party house. You know.
Right.
Also, everyone has somewhere to sleep. You could have a party if you fucking buy up like how many mansions was this? Do you know? Like
I think
10?
it was no. I think it was like 4 or 5.
Okay. But I mean,
so you know, nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy.
Just,
yeah.
4 or 5 $8 million homes or whatever he bought up on a whim, just so he wouldn't have to say hi to anybody when he gets the newspaper in the morning or whatnot.
But if you've got like that's so crazy that like most people that are that rich are like, oh, I only want to live around rich people. But this motherfucker's so rich that he's like, none of these can even see me in a dream.
No, I don't
like,
even want fucking rich people around me. Yeah,
they're low class to him. Like,
I think he just, I mean, you know, he knew money and everything. I don't know that it's even about class. I think that like humans
flexing.
just kind of, no, I think that humans just don't really hit for him. Do you know what I mean?
He's that way.
Like, I just think that all of humanity is kind of, he's like, no, thank you. None of that hits. I'll be in here with my projects or whatever.
If you had that much money, which with him, I mean, the number is infinite, the most money you can ever fucking think of. Are you buying, I'm not even talking about a practicality thing, but like, are you buying a mansion in a neighborhood of mansions and then buying out the other mansions? Or are you going to go buy fucking 500 acres and have a super hitting mansion built on top of that so that you also have the land? Wouldn't that be what you would do? Because that's what I would do.
Feels way more practical, but I guess he just liked that neighborhood or something, but not, you know, but not it being a neighborhood.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I like this space in the world, but I'd really rather it not be a neighborhood. The whole neighborhood part of it is what's putting me off.
Dude, I bet the people that own those houses got like, he probably ended up paying whatever they wanted for it. You know, if he was in that mood, he couldn't, there's no bartering there. It's like, no, I'm going to stay here unless you give me fucking this. So like, good for those people.
So you said something a minute ago about you got one party house, and then while that party house is getting cleaned, you can party in another house or something. And it made me think of this ain't fancy at all. This is the opposite of fancy, I would argue. But it reminded me of something random I read once. I wondered if you heard of, and also give you the opportunity to poke any holes in it. So somebody theorizing, like, you know, that what we should do, what a man should do is you should have 2 dishwashers, right?
Ooh.
In your kitchen. And so one of them is always clean and one of them's always dirty, right?
Yeah.
So like one of them, you know, you got one that's clean, you pull the dishes out of that
and just use them,
put them back into the other one, right? Then when that fills up, you run it and the process reverses, right? And you just go back and forth between dishwashers.
I mean,
essentially.
That is a fucking great idea. And if you can afford the other dishwasher, good on you. What I feel though would end up happening though is that I'd have 2 dirty dishwashers eventually.
right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? It's one of those things where, like, and this happens with me a lot. Like, like, oh, me and Amber were just talking about it. For instance, she has those like the pumps, and so she's got the breast things that go on them. And there's like a lot of, I don't know how it was when y'all had kids. It was a lot longer ago, but like they're very intricate. There's like 8 pieces that make up one piece. You got to put them together like a fucking transformer. And so she's constantly having to clean them and shit like that. And she just got there was like some glitch in our insurance where they're sending us some more of those. And she was like, oh, this is great. She's like, I can clean them at the same rate, but there will always be one clean. And then we and her both looked at each other and like, no, they just gonna all be dirty. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Like knowing that you have that other set, you're gonna go, well, I don't have to clean these right now, and then they're all gonna be dirty at once. Because like if you've got the brain to want to not have to do something, you're probably not gonna do it. But I do like the dishwasher idea.
I'm just going to do a couple more of these. One of the co-founders of Microsoft had a mega yacht. Remember we talked about mega yachts, and on the deck of his mega yacht, he had a basketball court, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you remember how some of those boats would poop out smaller boats?
Yeah,
right?
That's my favorite feature of those boats.
Yeah, right. So he had a basketball court on the deck, and every now and then the ball would go overboard, right?
Of course.
So he hired a dude to drive his pooped out faster boat behind his mega boat just to get the basketball out of the water when it went overboard or whatever. Like that was that guy's whole job.
That's not a bad gig to have.
No.
Let me ask you this. How much do you know about the theory of relativity?
Not
enough.
No, I mean, I used to, a little bit, depends on where you're going with this. Cause I've tried to, of course, being me, I owned a copy of it in college and tried to like digest the whole thing, but I'm a little too dumb to understand the actual intricacies of it. But
so is theoretical motion a part of that? Like that's a part of that, right? Like
theoretical motion?
Yeah, So I know the theory of relativity has a lot to do with like time and light and shit, correct? Like relative motion, is like why when you're riding in a car, you're inside the car, you can throw a tennis ball up and it won't zip to the back because like you're confined in that space. But if you're on a yacht, like you're outdoors, so like the wind is whipping through your hair and shit. Like I feel like basketball would be a pretty fucking hard thing to do on a boat, don't you think?
Well, I think they park those yachts a lot.
Oh, right.
They just kind of chill on them, I'm applying houseboat logic to non-trash things, but I think they drive it to somewhere that hits, then they just park and then hit there.
Okay, dude.
Wherever they're parked at. So.
That makes so much more sense. Like in my brain, they were cruising and playing basketball, and so naturally that the poop boat guy was more like a dude at the driving range that is constantly picking up the balls, and then he's having to drive them back and like throw them on. I thought that's how complicated that was, but the way you said it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Also, there was a couple that asked a travel agency to book a honeymoon. They used a travel agency because they stipulated that every hotel they stayed at over their 2-week journey had to install a new mattress that they would pay for, and then burn that mattress after they left. Like no one else was allowed to sleep on their mattress, but they had a specific brand of mattress that they specified, and it was $5,000 a piece. So every place they went to bought and installed a $5,000 mattress for them to pork on, and then threw it away after they left over the course of a 2 or 3 week trip or whatever. So that's a load of money.
If you got it, you got it. And thus a further explanation as to how the mattress community it still makes money is for fucking shit like that. Because, we've talked about it a bunch. Like I did spend a lot of money for my mattress, way too much. It was the first money I ever had in my whole life. So you're going to do stupid shit with it. But it got me to thinking of like, and I think about this with cologne too, which I think kind of fits the theme of our show. Thinking about it with cologne, like cologne is very expensive, right? It's very expensive for ultimately smelly liquid. But like I've had the same bottle of cologne for like 3 years and I use it every day. So I was like, they have to mark this shit up, right? Like, of course they have to, because if they $5 over 5 years ain't gonna work. And I've thought that same thing with mattresses, and it's like, well, of course they they last you 10 years, so they got to mark it up. But like, I would say that like probably 1% of the world is like responsible for 99% of the mattress sales, because of like hotels, rich people move. Like, I guarantee when a rich person moves, they don't take their fucking mattress with them. They just get a new mattress. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. There's an old papaw saying that I heard once. It was something like, never go cheap on anything that separates you from the ground. So it's like footwear, tires, mattresses, things of that nature.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I have the money to spend on it. But yeah,
Right.
I certainly.
Well, it's also, I mean, yes, some people just can't help it, but it's also like it undeniably makes objective sense, because those types of things, if you get the cheap versions of those things, you're going to end up spending more money in the long haul. Now that's the whole economics of poverty and why it's inescapable and all that shit. We ain't got to get into all that. So
yeah, for sure. But yes, if you have the money to spend on good footwear, you're dumb to not do it. If you have the money, you're dumb to not do it.
So I don't know. Let's do these airmail, I guess.
Oh, dude, I've got some really, really good ones. I've been debating on whether I wanted to end with this one or start with it, but I think I'm going to start with it. This is from our buddy John, and the subject line is, get ready for this: Texas redneck damn near beats me up for not being queer. Right?
Okay.
Okay. I thought it was a typo. I genuinely thought it was a typo. And then I read it. First, some background. I'm a semi-retired programmer living with my wife in Toole, Texas, aka Trailer Park Boys with a Lake. I'm 56 and have lived in Texas most of my life, but I do like to read books and can say words with more than 2 syllables, which you would certainly agree means that I'm queer. So anyway, last Friday, I was out by the apartment pool with 3 of the local guys. I had just finished making a couple jars of homemade moonshine and brought out a few shots to share. Fast forward a couple of hours, and we're all drunk and loud and laughing about whatever bullshit comes to mind. The rednecks all went to high school together, and they started talking about dicks they had sucked, much like on y'all's show. We were all having a laugh until one of the rednecks wanted to hear my dick sucking stories, and I made the mistake of telling the truth. I never sucked a dick. This didn't sit well with the redneck with the longest beard and most tattoos. He started shouting that I was an asshole and a damn liar. He was definitely not going to let this queer who uses big words think he's the straightest guy here. So he was going to have to beat me up on general principle. Mind you, it never escalated beyond that. I'm a pretty big guy, and the other rednecks wanted him to shut up as much as I did. It was just a surreal experience that involved redneck dick sucking, and I figured if anyone could appreciate that, it would be you guys.
I mean, he nailed that last part. Yeah, for sure. This is certainly the show for it. But like,
what an outlier situation.
What? Yeah, like
Oh, no.
he was with and I'm not like calling it into question or anything.
I'm happy for these guys.
Yeah, it's just like he's with a whole group of red asses who get drunk and longingly talk about all the dicks they sucked, and then want to whoop your ass for not sucking any dick.
It's like,
I mean,
that's the world we want to live in. Yeah. Like, that is such the inverse.
2023, baby, I guess. I don't know.
Oh my God. Subject line: White elephant stories. This is from Jennifer. Heard y'all talking about white elephant parties and wanted to share 2 stories. Read one, both, or neither of them. I don't give a shit, but they made me giggle. Which means I'm reading both. But they made me giggle just remembering them. Both of these stories occurred at the same friend's New Year's Eve party, but not the same year. Story number 1. I should have known this was a trap. There was a fabric box shaped like a pink sparkly cupcake. I had to have it. Well, I got it, and by the way, here's a picture of it for everybody to see. That's a box that someone made to look like a pretty cupcake, and they did a good job. They did a very, very good job. The prize inside was a glass butt plug with a raccoon tail attached to it that some friends purchased from a Chinese website where it was labeled as a vaginal intercourse and anal sex weapon. The, the cupcake box in question made it back to my apartment, but not the quote weapon. I texted the hostess as well as the friend that brought this as a gift the next day. No one saw it. The only thing we can figure is that the friend of a friend that no one really knew that well and showed up with baby mama drama took it because he was really fascinated by how realistic that raccoon tail looked. He also threw up in the shower before peacing out because his other baby mama accused him of going to a lingerie party. We were all mixed company, just wearing sweatpants because none of us wanted to dress up. That's story number one. Story number two. I think this was 2017. We just moved into a new house. I was getting ready to leave to go to the same friend's New Year's Eve party. The hostess texted reminding us of the white elephant gifts. We were still unpacking, and I completely forgot about the gift thing. It was like 8 at night. Everything was closed already, so I began scouring what we had unpacked to see if there was anything dumb that I could wrap real quick. Lo and behold, the Lord did provide a box of Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuit mix. A few hours later, the hostess was rather inebriated and wound up with my box of biscuit mix. She sat cross-legged on her floor, cradling her wine and getting the sniffles while saying that mix was the best gift she had ever gotten in her life. Thanks for the laughs, fellas. Love you, Jennifer.
I mean, you know, them Cheddar Bay biscuits unassailable, but
they are absolutely unassailable. Thank you, Jennifer. The airmail is on fire this week. This is from Josh. This is very important. The subject line is Poopé accents and the like. Poopé spelled Poopeh. Poopé.
Yeah, like Jamie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yo Boys was listening to y'all fawning over Jamie Tart and his accent, which I also absolutely love, and think whoever that British dude was who said it wasn't legit is full of shit. If you've never heard, there's a guy called Youngblood who's a musician over there, famously from Doncaster or Doncaster, either way. I don't know. This is not them questioning it. That's me. Who sounds very much like Jamie Tart. A video interview is below for proof. Interestingly, there seems to be levels to the Doncaster accent based on what I can only assume is privilege. Jeremy Clarkson is from Doncaster as well, but went to a posh school growing up where Youngblood was a dirt poor bloke by all accounts. They sound super different. Jamie Tart was also super poor growing up, and I think that although it may be a bit exaggerated, it's very close to other poor Doncaster fellers. Just my thoughts while listening to y'all. Keep hitting, Mr. H. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, first of all, I don't know where Doncaster is, if that's outside of Manchester. We know from this week's episode that Jamie is supposed to be from Manchester specifically,
right?
Which they call Mancunian, a Mancunian accent. Again, I have no idea where Doncaster is, but if that dude is from Doncaster, if that's not Manchester, then the dude who, you know what I'm saying? There's still some gray area there. But if Doncaster's like a neighborhood of Manchester, then okay. Also, I was never saying. I'm just saying. I saw some people.
Well, they were saying that we were right.
I love that Jamie, talks. I love the way he talks. Yeah, Poopa Keely. Hey.
All right, let's do one more. This was. I had to check to see if this was certainly sent to Putting on Air as not well read, but then I read the bottom of it and I know it was. But it's a great crossover. As I listened to y'all riff on Joe Diffie today, I was reminded of the greatest tweet of all time, or at least the greatest tweet about Joe Diffie. Behold in all its glory, and I'll read it to you, Trey. I don't know if you remember this. Okay. So Trace Atkins, when Joe Diffie died, shared a picture of Joe Diffie and said, "Oh my God, one of the all-time great vocalists, Joe Diffie was my friend. Rest in peace, buddy." And the top comment below was a older woman named Heather that said, "R.I.P. Joe," and then continues, "Back in 87, he and I had a one-night stand. The cowboy was very well hung. Unfortunately, he never called me back. Heaven gained another 10 inches."
Perfectly fits the legend of Joe Diffie because
it sure does.
That came up because I was saying my white elephant gift used to be pictures of Joe Diffie with lewd inscriptions on them or whatever.
Which does hit.
So that makes it hit harder knowing he had a big old
wiener.
clanger dick. Yeah.
He continues, also, I'd never heard of a Yankee swap before today's episode. We called it Chinese Christmas in my redneck Texas family, but it helped when solving today's New York Times crossword, 4 down, Christmas party game. Interesting timing. I saw y'all at the DC Improv a few years back and exchanged a sup with Corey in the bathroom. Thanks for all that you skew. Lucas. Thank you, Lucas. Airmail was absolutely on fire this week. I did notice a complete lack of limericks, and I don't know if that's because everybody got bored or if y'all's creative juices stopped flowing, but just remember, we are always accepting limericks and are willing to read them. Y'all do a bang-up job with that. We really appreciate y'all listening to the show. Follow us on all the socials and whatnot. You can get bonus stuff from me at parttimefunnyman.com. Get bonus stuff from Trey at patreon.com/Trey Crowder. And also, Trey, tell them about where you're about to be soon.
I don't really know, but you can go to TreyCrowder.com and I'm going, places that hit. Milwaukee, I think, is coming up soon.
Milwaukee does hit.
But yeah, go to TreyCrowder.com and check it out and come and see me. I'd appreciate it.
And also, stay fancy, motherfuckers.
Yep, skew.
Here's Lydia Lovelace.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Royalty and rednecks are alike. They both like cutting and picking fights. Biscuits and baked beans where they don't belong. Sit on down with Corey and Trey and learn some fancy shit today. We'll laugh a little even when they're wrong. They'll take you to a magical place where if you call someone a cunt, nobody cares. They keep it debonair at putting on airs, putting on airs, putting on airs.